Hello everyone, welcome back to Avlokan IAS. Today we focus on the devastating floods in Punjab, a crisis that cannot be seen as a mere act of nature. These floods represent a man made disaster shaped by decades of ecological neglect, poor planning, and unsustainable practices. Punjab, often called the breadbasket of India, is now caught in a cycle where human choices and environmental mismanagement have amplified the fury of natural events. The floods in Punjab have displaced thousands, submerged vast stretches of farmland, and caused massive damage to infrastructure. Yet, beyond the immediate destruction lies a deeper story. Punjab's geography and history tell us that it is not a flood prone state like Assam or Bihar, but unsustainable exploitation of land and water resources has turned even small spells of heavy rainfall into large scale flooding. The transformation of natural landscapes into concrete, unregulated urban sprawl, and poorly planned infrastructure has blocked the natural drainage of water, leaving it nowhere to go. One of the most critical causes is the alteration of rivers and their floodplains. Encroachment along riverbeds, illegal sand mining, and indiscriminate construction near water channels have reduced the river's carrying capacity. The Satluj, Beas, and Ghaggar rivers, once lifelines of Punjab's agrarian economy, are now choked and unable to absorb excess water. When heavy rains arrive, the water spills into villages, towns, and farms, turning settlements into disaster zones. Equally significant is the crisis of groundwater and soil health. Punjab has extracted groundwater on a massive scale to sustain its water intensive paddy cultivation, leaving aquifers depleted and soil degraded. This has weakened the natural resilience of the land to absorb rainfall. Fields that once acted as sponges to soak excess rain are now compacted and saturated with chemicals, worsening waterlogging. In short, agriculture itself, shaped by state policy and market demands, has indirectly contributed to the flooding challenge. Urbanization too has magnified the problem. Cities like Ludhiana, Jalandhar, and Patiala have witnessed unplanned growth with wetlands and low lying areas converted into residential colonies and industrial zones. Drainage systems are either outdated or blocked by the waste, making urban flooding a recurring nightmare. This is not merely an engineering failure, but the result of decades of ignoring urban planning norms. Climate change further adds to the crisis. The intensity and unpredictability of rainfall in Punjab have increased, as seen in the last few years. Short bursts of extreme rainfall are replacing long, steady monsoons, creating flash floods. Scientists warn that the Himalayan ecosystem, which feeds Punjab rivers, is under stress due to glacial retreat and erratic weather. Thus, the local human induced mismanagement is now being compounded by the global climate pressures. Another dimension is governance. Disaster preparedness in Punjab has been reactive rather than preventive. Embankments are poorly maintained, flood zoning regulations are ignored, and coordination among agencies remains weak. Often, action comes only after the damage is done when relief and compensation become the focus instead of long term planning. The lack of integration between agriculture policy, water management, and urban planning creates a fragmented approach that fails to address the root causes. The floods are also a social disaster. Small farmers, daily wage laborers, and migrant workers bear the heaviest burden. Their homes and livelihoods are the first to be washed away, while recovery for them is the slowest. Women and children are particularly vulnerable in relief camps, facing not only economic but also health and safety challenges. Meanwhile, the middle and upper classes often recover faster, deepening inequalities on the ground. We must also recognize the economic impact. Punjab's economy is deeply dependent on agriculture, and repeated floods damage crops, disrupt supply chains, and add to the distress of farmers, already facing debt and uncertainty. The destruction of infrastructure, roads, bridges, electricity lines further slows economic recovery. This is why the floods are not just an environmental or social issue, but also a developmental and governance challenge. So, what lessons can we draw from this crisis? First, Punjab needs a fundamental rethinking of its water and land use policies. The over dependence on paddy cultivation must be reduced, with crop diversification promoted on a large scale. Restoring wetlands, protecting river floodplains, and stopping illegal sand mining are non negotiable steps. Urban planning needs to adopt climate resilient models with strict enforcement of drainage norms and protection of natural water bodies. Second, disaster management must shift from relief centric to prevention focused. Flood zoning, scientific mapping of vulnerable areas, and community based disaster preparedness can significantly reduce the impact of heavy rains. Modern technology, including satellite monitoring and early warning systems, must be used proactively to save lives and minimize losses. Third, there is a need to integrate climate action with the local governance. Punjab's vulnerability to extreme weather is no longer an exception but a reality that will only intensify in the years ahead. Adaptation strategies, green infrastructure, and investments in resilient agriculture will be key to ensure that natural events do not repeatedly escalate into man made disasters. The story of Punjab's floods is therefore not just about overflowing rivers or heavy rains. It is about human choices, choices of policies, practices, and priorities that have made a relatively flood safe region increasingly vulnerable. Unless these choices are corrected, the cycle of devastation will continue, and each flood will erode not only land and property but also the trust of people in governance. In conclusion, the floods in Punjab stands as a wake-up call. They remind us that disasters are rarely natural anymore. Human interference with nature has tipped the balance, turning manageable events into large-scale crises. The path forward lies not in short-term relief but in the long-term structural change. Punjab must embrace sustainable farming, ecological restoration, and climate sensitive governance if it is to protect its people, economy, and the future from the next deluge. The floods in Punjab remind us that ecological sustainability and governance reforms are not optional but essential for India's future. If you find this discussion insightful, do like, share, and subscribe to stay updated. Thank you, everyone.